everybody, welcome to this episode of Beyond the Label podcast. So with me here today we have Gavin Chin. We're now at his restaurant in Hong Kong called House of Culture. So obviously he's a restaurant owner, he's a chef. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Gavin. I own House of Culture. It's a restaurant here in the lovely neighborhood of Saigon, and I'm a chef by trade, but my first time being a restaurant/owner.
Well, so lovely to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
And so I know that you're not originally from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
You're from Australia. So can you just take us back to that and just tell us a little bit about why you choose to move to Hong Kong and what started this whole culinary journey?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Perth, Western Australia, and I was there for 27 years of my life, and I just needed a change and wanted something. I just kind of realized through the many jobs that I've been through that I needed a real change in my environment. It took me about almost a year and a half to 2 years to prepare to leave for Hong Kong. And it's been 7 years, so I just got my PR.
Congratulations. Yeah. You mentioned about doing different jobs before in Australia. Were they always food related, or do you change industries to get to where you are now?
I always considered myself already entering the industry at the age of 8, 9, and 10, right? Because my parents had restaurants, so
okay.
I was always in my mom's restaurant, or if my mom was too busy, I'd bounce over to my dad's restaurant. That was my daycare after school. But it wasn't just kind of doing homework and watching cartoons all night. It was also getting involved with taking customers' orders, clearing the tables, maybe doing a fried rice once in a while. And then when it came to choosing a career, it was natural, of course, to then fall back into the industry, right? Even though I went through high school and went through courses that would lead me to a university degree, I just felt the most comfortable in the kitchen or in a restaurant environment. So I chose to be a chef at 16, and then became a certified chef around 21. So it takes about 3 to 4 years to be certified. In Australia, you need a license to be a chef, whereas different in Hong Kong, you don't require one. So I had to go through an apprenticeship. And so I started at the age of 16, already officially entering into the industry. I did that for about 8 years.
Wow.
There was a turning point in my life during my chefing career where I read a book by Marco Pierre White. He's Gordon Ramsay's head chef, back in the 80s and 90s. And it was actually, I was working in the most down-to-earth fusion kind of gastro pub, serving pad thai with beers, and stuff like that, and cocktails. So it was just a divey kind of grungy bar.
Yeah.
But that chef, his name was Mark, he gave me a book as a gift, and it was one day reading in the break room and reading how cool it was to be a rock and roll star as a chef, but also gain Michelin stars. And I just idolized this chef, Marco Pierre White. I quit. I went straight into fine dining, and I found the most I just went to the top restaurant in Perth, But at the time, I was also exposed to, because of that book, I was then led to explore other top restaurants around the world, and places some of the books I have here, Noma, the French Laundry, the OG kind of books back in the day. And it was wow, there's a whole world out there. And after that book, I literally looked up visas, how to get to these countries. And it was, I don't know, I think it was too difficult. Maybe I remember at the time I thought, I really need to build up some experience and fine dining before I can jump in these amazing restaurants around the world. And so let's start local, right? That's the easiest. I don't need to save up money to travel and get a visa and so forth. I worked at, I went to try a musée. A musée at the time was no one in Perth in terms of fine dining. Wasn't good enough, didn't work out. Did a trial, and he's I don't think so, Because you gotta understand, my background was what they kind of term as a cowboy chef. Kind of you wing it, you go on the fly, you just kind of roll with the punches, you just kind of cook it out, boom, 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 out, bit of salt here and there, go out. And that doesn't work in fine dining. And so I think he saw a little bit of that, and it's just you're young, you're not ready yet, cool, get it. So I went to the second best at the time, which was Jackson's restaurant. So Jackson's restaurant was a French restaurant. I thought so, but when I entered, it was like fusion.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So I was there for a year, and I was caned just the whole year. But they, as a team, are another level. It's a world I've not even like experienced before, right? It's like asking a server from like McDonald's to jump straight into Mandarin Oriental the next day and just work at their level.
Was that how you felt?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like for about 6 months to 8 months, yeah. I think by the end of it, I might have got the hang of it. But even today, like, it's definitely made a huge imprint in my memory the times I failed at Jackson's, because I don't want that to ever happen again. But I also understand why those things happen, because I just didn't have the foundational basics of fine dining. Then I finally earned my way into a musée. So went to fine dining at a musée, and he was kind of like, oh, I respect that you took a year to like build this foundation and kind of prepare for working in my restaurant. Like, well, yeah, thanks, chef. I really want to work here.
How old were you?
I'm guessing 21, 22. Yeah, probably like 22. And a musée was tougher. A musée was tougher than Jackson's, because Neil Jackson at Jackson's restaurant, he was away quite a bit. He was like semi-retired. He'd jump into service once in a while just to check on things, but he's already run the restaurant for like 14, 15 years, 16 years. Whereas the musée at the time had only been open for like maybe 8 to 10 years, I think. So he's also trying to like build his reputation. So there's more pressure as well.
Right.
And that's why it was a tough kitchen to work in.
Actually, a lot of people don't understand fusion
Yeah.
food, especially in a place like Hong Kong, where it's already so international that you get all these mix-up ingredients, like using like Chinese ingredients for like French cuisine, stuff like that.
Fusion to me, like, I know it has a bad rep from the late 80s and 90s. You know,
Yes.
like, there's a lot of chefs today that don't love it. A lot of people like want to know what kind of restaurant we are. And I don't mind using fusion. That's a label and a category that you've been exposed to, and you can't think of something else. I get it, because we're actually trying to create something unique and new. We're always innovating. So how can you label something that hasn't pre-existed before? Fine. Put us in a box, close fusion, that's fine. We'll rip the box open anyway. Don't worry about it. Because at the end of the day, it's about collaboration of cultures. That's why, hence the name House of Culture. We just want you to have a great night. We just want to have a great conversation with you at the end. How was everything? What did you like? What didn't you like? Whether that comes from the inspiration of Greek cuisine, Mediterranean cuisine, Italian, French, Chinese, Malaysian, whatever it is. So when I'm thinking of what to achieve with House of Culture, I don't just think about the guest's experience, but my team's experience. Because they're both human, right? It's just that one's getting paid to be here and one's paying to be here.
Well, before I go on to asking about you and your team, I want to like ask a little bit more about the cultural like infusion that you bring, because obviously you're from Australia and you moved to Hong Kong, and that in itself is a cultural difference. So how do you infuse your own values, your upbringing, like your childhood into the cuisine that you make now?
First of all, like, if you, I realized a few years ago, if you did a school project, right, and there was a class of like, 30 students, and I assigned a flag to each student to give me a whole like, flow chart or whatever you want to call it, just a whole project. Tell me about that country. Cool. That's good. That's a very like shallow surface level kind of analysis of the city or the country. But what I realized was I can also take ideologies. But what I'm bringing from Australia is the ideology. First of all, we forage. We use what's around us. We, as chefs, go out to the bush. We follow the native people of the country, of the land, and they show us, hey, you can eat this, you can eat that. I can't do that in Singapore. There's no natives of Singapore. There are people that have lived here for a long time. And that'll tell you what Singapore looked like before it was, modernized. But when I go to like Home Gai and I go to the Gong Fo Po, those dry kind of stores that sell these very traditional Chinese ingredients, they can tell me like this was this is great for a soup, or this is great for steaming, or so forth. So I foraged that way. That's the ideology I brought back from Australia, and I foraged in my neighborhood.
Wow.
Right, and yes, I know, like, when I use like Tanpei, which is Mandarin peel.
Yes.
Of course, I know it was not made locally in Saigon. Like, it wasn't, the Mandarin wasn't grown in Saigon and dried in Saigon. I'm foraging, I guess, the culture of Saigon into the restaurant, and how can I make that a part of the restaurant.
I love that. Wow. And actually, I want to ask a little bit more about you like moving to Hong Kong, because I feel like that's such an overlooked thing, you know, because in Hong Kong, when you meet someone, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm from here, I'm from there, and like I moved here like X amount of years ago, and it just feels so common. But in reality, it must be a big change. But how was that experience for you?
If I put you on like a carousel, right, you know, with the horses at the carnival, and I spin it really fast, it's just like a blur. You see a lot of flashing lights, and you see people's, like, you know, kind of their shapes and their faces, but it's a blur because everything's moving so fast. That's Hong Kong. I've been here 7 years, and every memory I have of the 7 years is like, you know, it's just a blur.
So I want to take you back to like 7 years ago, and just share with us like what were like, yeah, what was it, you know, and especially from a place in Australia, because this is a personal anecdote, but I have cousins in Australia, and my family, like my parents, were thinking of moving us there many years ago. But there's one thing that stopped them, is that they thought Australia was too chill.
Yeah.
They think that if I lived in Australia and I come back to Hong Kong, I would not be able to bargain the prices, go into the MTR, so all those things. So for me, it feels like two completely different worlds.
It was definitely a shock, and I created that shock myself, right? Because I've always been the underdog in my life, and I always want to work hard for what I want. I've tried shortcuts before in the past, and they just didn't work, and I'm not smart. I'm more street smart, so if you need me to get there faster, I just have to run faster. That's my mentality. And so when I was preparing for Hong Kong, I was like, okay, I'm going to save so much money. I'm going to go for the cheapest rent. I'm going to find something that room's fine, right? I'm just going to get a small room, enough. I just needed to sleep, because I'm going to go out there and hustle, work hard. I don't know how to explain that in English, but it was 60 square feet.
So basically it's like cage housing.
Yeah.
Do you even have a toilet?
There was so it was one apartment.
Okay.
And it was cut into 9 rooms.
Oh.
And there was 2 toilets and 2 showers and 1 tiny kitchenette for everyone to share. And
I'm guessing it's still quite expensive, actually.
it was like 3,500. I actually got
Okay.
the more expensive room. Yeah. It's actually the cheapest one is 3,000.
Okay.
And I upgraded to 3,500 because I had a small little window I could see outside, so I didn't feel like I lived in a jail cell. But I only lasted 5 days. You know, like I thought I could, you know, push through it, you know, hustle and just like, you know, ignore it. But it was literally like I couldn't even put my shoulders out.
Wow.
It was just like this. Like if I bent my elbow out a little bit, that's the wall, pretty much. And so my luggage it fit perfectly into the room, because the width of my luggage was exactly the width of the room. So I would have to step over my luggage to get to the table and chair to like look out the window.
Wow.
Yeah. So every time I opened the luggage, I couldn't like go past it, you know. And then I would climb up a ladder, and there's like an army bunk bed on top, and you can't even sit up in the bed.
Gosh.
Yeah. You can just like lie down, and the ceiling's like right there, pretty much. And my friend at the time helped me move in, and she's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're not gonna last here very long." I was like, "No, I'll be fine. I'm just gonna push through it." And I literally called my mom. I was like, "You gotta help me. I get me a hotel. I gotta get out of here." So I went to the closest hotel and stayed there for like, it was on Hollywood Road at the time. I just stayed there for a few days just to buy some time, because I just couldn't handle it. And so my mom found me, like, because I can't read Chinese, so she found me a good apartment in Wanzai at the time. So it was great. It's still like it's still small, but it was way more comfortable. It was moving from 60 square feet to 100 square feet, like 90ish to 100. And I had my own toilet, had my own shower, had my own kitchen. So it was vastly different. But it was also double the price. So that hit me hard in terms of like Hong Kong rental. It's almost like 50% of your salary.
So how do you push through? And I'm guessing that coming from Australia, you lived in a mansion.
Compared to Hong Kong, yeah. The basics, you know, you have a backyard, you have a front yard, and in our front yard we can park 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars.
What
9
luxury
cars.
that is.
And yeah, it was like we have 5-bedroom house, massive kitchen, all that for granted because it's everywhere. And we had a medium-sized house compared to everyone else, to be honest.
That's crazy. And how do you adjust that mindset? Like coming from that environment and then now having to really, really hustle.
I think I'm somewhat fear-driven, and I've accepted it and I'm fine with it. And the fear of going backwards and the fear of going back to Australia and just kind of meandering in mediocrity outweighed the fear of facing these challenges in Hong Kong. Right? Because I knew or had a very clear idea if I stayed in Australia what I would look like at the age of 70, what my life would look like at the age of 60. But I had no idea of what I would look like at the age of 35 or 40 in Hong Kong because every day was so different. Opportunities just pop up left, right, and center. And it's about, the only question is, are you ready to take on the challenge? You know, do you have the skills? Are you confident enough to say yes to that opportunity, whatever it may be? And in the 7 years, there have been so many different opportunities that have arisen.
I feel like this really resonates with a lot of us, you know, having that constant battle between like staying in your comfort zone, you know, like having all these things that you're familiar with and knowing, like having that sense of certainty versus going out to the unknown, but then taking that risk, that reward might come greater. And I think that's a really great sample that you told us that, you know, obviously it's worked out great for you here. I really resonate with what you said about that fear of like staying back in Australia and knowing what that looks like. I was at the Michelin star like award like last 2 years ago, and you know, super like fancy, and I was a media representative at the time, and literally I was talking with people on my table and they said, yeah, we do this like every year, it's so great, like luxury, like Michelin star chefs, like great. But in my eyes I was like, I don't want to do this every single year. I don't want to like sit there on that table and I could see like the future version of myself in these very senior journalists, and that's just not what I want. So shortly after, I also left my job as a journalist.
Wow.
So I love this story that you're telling us. And now going into the final part of our interview, I want to know more about how you are as a leader. You know, because obviously I'm guessing a kitchen, a restaurant environment, it's super chaotic. New situation arises every day. There's like complaining customers, or in Hong Kong, there's no doubt in that. And so how do you keep your cool as a leader and, you know, keep respect to the customer, keep respect to your team, and how do you keep that balance?
I think first of all, be very forgiving, not towards just others but yourself. It's all right to lose your cool once in a while, because your team won't follow a robot. The team will prefer not to follow someone who's perfect, who hides their imperfections. So everything you just said, like how to do this and how to do that, I don't always keep my cool. I sometimes lose my patience. I do get frustrated. I do sometimes just kind of want to pause and take a breath and forget everything. The kitchen is always tough. The restaurant is always tough every day. I constantly get asked these questions like, oh, it must be tough for you in the restaurant industry now. It's like, it's always been tough. We've never had a great day in the restaurant industry where we've earned millions of dollars and everything's fantastic and everything's smooth, because that's not the nature of restaurants. Imperfection is a constant, and let's accept it and celebrate it. So I think another point to be a good leader, the second part is being very clear with your brand identity, which is like your principles and values. Connect with them as one human to another rather than one boss to an employee. And I think I'm very blessed with my team that they can switch between both. I can banter with them, I can have a great time with them, I can give them crap once in a while, they can give me crap, I can take it as much as they can. But when it comes to work, they switch like a light switch, and it's like, oh, yes chef, no chef, sorry chef. We should not do this again. Yep, I learned. I think that's because as a leader, I'm not being egotistic about my position.
Yeah.
I'm not taking advantage of this like power that I have in the restaurant. Whatever power I have or authority, I'm using it for something beyond myself, which is the respect for our craft. Whether you're a sommelier, maitre d', whether you're a bartender, whether you're on the floor as a server or just polishing cutlery, everything that you're doing, there's a respect for that craft. Because I am always asking for respect. I'm not asking you to respect me and like, how dare you say this to me, blah, blah, blah. It's more about, hey, respect the restaurant. This restaurant feeds you.
Yeah.
As much as it physically feeds our guests, the revenue that's coming in is paying for your life. And so when leadership is based upon something beyond yourself, we want to very clearly teach the industry, yes, you're being very hospitable to the customers who are paying, but don't forget that your hospitality as leaders extends beyond the transaction.
Yeah.
It also means you have to be as hospitable to your own team because you spend more time with them than your family. So we want to change the definition of what a good restaurant means.
I love that so much. I think that is just something so easily forgotten.
Yeah.
Especially, I love what you said about not letting your ego come in the way, because we see that time and time again. Yeah, we forget sometimes that the people that we work with, we see them more than our families. And why not, lead with respect, with kindness, with the way that you want to be treated?
Yeah.
I think that's such an important reminder. Honestly, not just for this restaurant industry, but I think for all industries.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do here, on this podcast, is also to create that safe space for you, the speaker, and for the guests to really feel like they can be whoever that they want to be, and having this channel of communication, like with people like you, to really know that yes, there are these really great things happening in the world. It's not as grim as the news and media show us. So thank you so much for that. And going to the last final question is, can you share one thing that you love about yourself?
One thing I love about myself is my tenacious nature. And it allows me to forgive myself at times when, for example, I'm on my weight loss journey and I want to just keep on, working out and being healthy. But there are times that I give up and don't eat so healthy and maybe forget to work out for a couple of days. In those moments, I am very clear of my tenacious nature, and whether I get to my goal weight and my goal physique when I'm 40 or 45, it's not important to me. It doesn't matter when. I know I'll eventually pick it up. It's the same with this restaurant. The journey it took about a year to open this restaurant, and it was that tenacity and grit that always put me on the path in my mindset to just find a way. So that survival instinct is what I love about myself at certain times, because it's helped me through some tough times, just to be like, this too shall pass.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. I think we've all got a lot to
digest,
to think about, to reflect.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell the audience where they can find you?
Yeah, sure.
Any social media, websites?
Yeah. So the Instagram for House of Culture is House of Culture Hong Kong on Instagram. Just HK at the end.
Well, thank you all so much for tuning in and listening to this. If you're based here, come and check out this restaurant, and we'll see you soon. Bye!